Good afternoon, pipe smokers. Prairie Piper here on a fairly nice Sunday afternoon here in the Interlake, Manitoba. And continuing with our Virginia series, tobacco reviews here, we're going to switch things up a little bit. We're going to do a straight red Virginia. So next up is the Low Country line, and this is the straight red Virginia Edisto. I believe that's how it's pronounced. Edisto. So this is Cornell and Dale, Jeremy Reeves. I guess the Low Country is the they did a blend, I guess, for the brick and mortar store at Smoking Pipes, and this is it, Low Country. So straight red Virginia. It's from 2022, which I believe is the year that this first came out, because I remember when it came out just a few years ago. I was very interested to try it. But I'll get into that. So I have had this once. I tried it 3 years ago and then I put it away. And I'm going to try it again now. And on my final thoughts, I'll go into a little bit more detail about what I thought about the first time. But so this jar, like I said, I opened this up 3 years ago. 3 years ago in November. So it's got a little bit of age on it. Let's see what the tin note here is, the jar note. So right away, to me, it smells like Terry's chocolate, the chocolate orange. I'm not saying it smells like chocolate, but it does have a kind of a chocolatey quality. And I hesitate in saying it because I don't want you to think it smells like chocolate, because it doesn't. But it smells like the orange. It smells like the orange scent you get out of a Terry's chocolate. If that makes sense. So it smells like oranges. There's a little bit of a nutty smell in here as well. I don't want to say it's not a citrus orange either. You know, like I think I described as in the capstan and the Orlick Golden Slice is kind of is sort of like an orange citrus smell. So the orange smell is in here, but it's not a citrus. It smells like an orange, but it doesn't smell like citrus. If that makes sense. I know it may not, but there's a bready quality in here too, a tangy, almost, I don't want to say ketchup because everyone's going to think McClellan's. I'm not saying, but there's a tangy, slightly, I don't want to say vinegar, but maybe vinegar with a little bit of molasses, maybe a malt vinegar. Not heavy, but it's in there, kind of mixed in with that bready quality, the orange scent, the tanginess, the zest. And I get a nutty smell, which is probably where me wanting to say it's kind of like chocolate, and I hesitate using those words because they're not something you would normally associate with a red Virginia. So let me say kind of a nuttiness, nutty orangeness. I've packed a bowl. I got my pipe outside the garage, so I don't have it broken up, but it's a C&D flake, right? They call it a flake. It's kind of busted up, but I will show you the flakes here. Let's take a look, and then we'll go outside and fire up a bowl. So there it is, 3 years old, pretty dark. If I play with it much more, it's all going to break up. But typical C&D flake. Smells delicious. We'll see what it smokes like though. I have had a few bowls of this, so let's go out to the garage, light it up. I'll show you the pipe I'm using out there. It's actually it's a pipe you guys haven't seen before, and it's one of my favorites. I'll show it to you in the garage, and then maybe I'll take it out into the sunlight so we can get a better look at it. All right, let me pause this and meet you out in the garage. Okay, here we are back in the garage. Smoking this. I don't know how well the light's going to pick this up, but and I can't tell on the screen. I'll do this in one take. That's how Prairie Piper does it. I'll show you, and then I'll take you out in the sun and see. But that's what I'm smoking. It's a Brigham Tundra series. It's a sitter too, so you can see on the bottom there it's smooth. And it's a really nice kind of reddish brown. It's a Shape 63 from Brigham. I really, really like the Tundra series by Brigham. But I'll show you out in some light. In the sunlight, probably turn out better. So let's fire this up. So I had this the first year it came out, like I said. And my jar says November 2021. No, 2022. 3 years. So it probably came out in 2022. And the reason that I had 1 or 2 bowls out of it, and I wasn't that impressed, to be perfectly honest with you. So it being a Virginia and a red Virginia, my favorites, I said, well, pack it up. Cellar it. See what she does down the road. And why I initially lit this up a few days ago, I was thinking to myself, okay, there's some of my tangy, I got my tangy red, I got the tanginess from the red in there, the bready quality, though I don't think this is overly bready. So the first few puffs a few days ago, I was excited. And then as I continued to smoke it, I kind of felt like it got one-dimensional on me. It didn't sort of evolve or break out into anything. But it grew on me. And sometimes you got to give a blend, you know, I'm pretty good. I've been smoking long enough that I can usually tell if I'm going to like something right away, or at least within the first bowl, but that's not always true. I actually find myself saying that a little bit more lately. So as soon as you light it up, you get your typical, right, red Virginia tang. It's sweet. And it's tangy. A lot of flavor, a lot of really sharp flavor. It's nice. Really, really nice. It's high quality. It's not overly complex. The first top of the bowl is not overly complex. But like I said, further down the bowl, it does start to develop. It gets a little bit more, it gets fuller. Not richer, but the smoke just seems to have more in it. Like a little bit more bread comes out, and I don't know if that's because you're smoking it and you're sort of stoving it, right? The bottom tobacco underneath. I don't know if it kind of feels like it's developing. The top bowl develops, and then the bottom, you start to get kind of like a more bready molasses sweetness to it. It's very nice. So right now, the top half of the bowl, and this has kind of been how it's been all week. The top half of the bowl, sweet, not overly sweet, but more of a tangy sweet, like a zesty sweetness. I'm not really tasting what I smelled, so in terms of the orange or the nuttiness, not really smelling that, or start tasting it. just tasting. I guess you could describe the zestiness as it doesn't taste like an orange. It's not like a bright Virginia where it tastes like lemons and oranges and citrusy. It's not that. It's just more of this sweet tangy. It's a sweet tanginess. So it starts off like that, and that's kind of all you get. And like I said, you have a tendency to say, well, this kind of just seems sort of one-dimensional. It is, but further down the bowl, give it a chance, it will start to develop. So I'm going to pause this, and let me smoke this for a little bit longer, and hopefully I can kind of take you through the transition to this, what it's doing the bottom half of the bowl. Okay. Okay, we're back here. What I've noticed about this, I'm smoking this in a smaller bowl than what I typically smoke things in. I love this pipe, but it's one of the smaller bowls that I own. And I noticed, so when I started smoking this earlier on in the week in a Briar Sweat and Tears pipe, it was much bigger. But in a smaller bowl, this is tasting much better. And I think it's because I'm not getting the ash buildup, which to me chokes some of the flavor if you have a big bowl. So what I was doing when I have bigger bowls, I've mentioned this before, halfway down, depending on the size of the maybe not half, 3/4 of the way down, I'll dump all the ash out, rejig some of the tobacco and light it up again. That works for me. Other guys don't like that. They just like to smoke once they light it, they like to just smoke the ash. They'll keep the ash in there, smoke it right down to the bottom. I find I get a bigger return on my investment for taste-wise when I dump the ash out on bigger bowls. Smaller bowls, you don't have to worry about that. And that's what I'm finding with this. It's holding much more flavor for me in a smaller bowl than in the larger bowl that I was using earlier on in the week. Which might seem obvious. But I'm just kind of talking myself through my experience throughout the week with the larger bowl versus the smaller bowl now. And I like it. It does, I find, I will say this though, I think, like a lot of tobaccos, it's not unusual. At the halfway point, it loses a bit of that tang and a bit of that zest. And gets a little creamier and a little softer. But then it does develop into a little bit more, and I say bread, it is bread, and I don't know how to describe it. It's not a sourdough bread. And it's not even like a brown bread. It just smells kind of like, tastes and smells sort of like bread, but a non-descriptive bread, and I realize that doesn't make sense. But it's not a sourdough. It's not like a heavy rye pumpernickel that I've described in the past. You would say it's bready. So maybe what I'll say is this. Maybe it's bready, kind of like with a dark Virginias, although this is just a straight red. Although maybe, they say straight red, there could be some other components in here. A little bit of a touch of dark maybe, or brown Virginia even. I meant brown Virginia, not dark. So let's wrap this up. This seems one to age, and I'll tell you a story about this. So I bought this 3 years ago when it came out. 2022. I'm a big fan of C&D. I like what Jeremy Reeves is doing over there. So I like to try a lot of the new stuff that he comes up with, and this was the new line, right? Low Country. So I got it, and I remember Shane Ireland, and you can go on Smoking Pipes, Shane Ireland. If you go to the Edisto Low Country pipe tobacco screen on Smoking Pipes, Shane does a review of this, which I watched. And he says, dare I compare this to Carolina red flake, and he does. With a caveat, I think he means down the road. He could be right, but because it's just a straight red. But let me back up a sec. So you can go watch our review. Shane Ireland compares it to Carolina red flake. Age, that could be true. But when this line first came out in 2022, it was like $2 to $3 cheaper a tin than C&D, like than the regular line for C&D. So I had thought, I think maybe like a lot of guys that a lot of pipe smokers, that this appeared when it first came out to be I don't want to say a budget line, but certainly lower level, because it was lower entry, like maybe more entry level, because it was like $2 a tin cheaper. Now it's $13 a tin, and a regular tin of C&D is $13.18. So this somehow 3 years ago was like $250 dollars cheaper than a tin of C&D, and now it's only 18 cents. So that confuses me. This is a good Virginia. It's good quality tobacco. I wouldn't buy it again for $13 because look, if you want to age it, I mean, for $13, I guess it's not bad. But if it's not that good right out of the tin, which is why 3 years ago I jarred it up. So if you want to buy this and age it, which is what I think Shane was saying, down the road it could be similar to Carolina red flake, he might be right. And we're going to find out next weekend, because I'm going to do Carolina red flake and I'm going to compare it to this low country Edisto red Virginia. So we'll see. I'm very interested myself just to see if that's true. Maybe it needs a few more years age on it, but it's got 3. So I'm going to compare this red Virginia to Carolina red flake next weekend. But tin for tin, I think you're better off buying any one of the C&D line at $13.18 versus $13 for this Edisto. It's not very good fresh, in my opinion. Everyone's tastes are different, but 3 years of age on this, much better. But I mean, I'm not a huge guy. I sell our tobacco because it's going to be more expensive in the future, not specifically because I want to age it per se. So I don't typically buy brands to age them, blends rather. I don't buy blends to age them. That's an added bonus down the road, but I don't do it. So I guess in closing, is the Edisto straight red Virginia worth cellaring? I think it is. If you want to, if you want to cellar it, and it's way better down the road. Like I said, I prefer to buy tobacco that I can smoke now, that has the added benefit of that ages down the road. Most tobacco ages gracefully anyways, most of it, especially Virginias and vapors. So there you have it. I'll take you out into the sunlight and see if we can get a better shot of this pipe, but we'll wrap this up here. So very curious. Next weekend, Carolina red flake compared to this straight red that Shane Ireland says he thinks is a contender for Carolina red, aged that is, down the road. So we'll see. Let's. It's been a while. Last year, I think, is the last time I cracked open a tin of Carolina red flake, which, for the record, is one of my favorites. So this is, for me, it's going to be an interesting comparison. So that's what we'll do next weekend. Anyways, I'm going to start blabbing. Let's take a look at this pipe out here in the sun. There we go. So really nice looking pipe. You can see on the bottom there. It is a sitter, that's smooth. I don't want to flip it over, and my hand's holding the camera. If I flip it over, I'm going to lose my tobacco. So anyways, there you have it, folks. Enjoy the rest of the weekend and the week. Next weekend, Carolina Red Flake. Take care. Prairie Piper out.